Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2 on the Steam Deck. First of all, thanks to Focus Entertainment for providing an early code of the game. So this game releases basically tomorrow for the people with the Ultimate Editions, and a few days later for the Standard Edition owners. So I wanted to show you how it runs on Steam Deck. So 800p, you got FSR2 or TAA. If you're doing upscaling with TAA, it will be FSR1, so keep that in mind. You got native, quality, balance, performance, ultra performance, and dynamic. So you have a dynamic resolution FPS target slider, which is always nice to see. But we're going to try native first, just to see what to expect. Then when it comes to motion blur, I'm disabling it. And in the quality presets, texture filtering is fine on high. Texture resolution on medium seems to be a good amount of VRAM, all things considered. Shadows will have to be on low. Ambient occlusion, unfortunately, despite the visual difference, I'll have to turn it off. Same with the reflections. Volumetrics at the lowest. Effects, which, well, on the highest looks pretty cool. We're putting at the lowest as well. Details, which is desolation and other details in the world, are also on low. And cloud simulation is at the lowest. This is mostly for CPU performance. So basically lowest settings with medium textures and high texture filtering at native resolution 800p. So let's get into it.
Confirm Vox contact.
So right away, what you probably cannot notice is that there's no 16:10, it's forced 16:9. I tried everything. What the developer said in the known issues for the PC version is that they're still working on ultra-wide support. Usually when they do that, they add 16:10 because it's another aspect ratio. And yeah, let's pause the game and let's put it on performance FSR2. And let's see if performance is any better. Okay, performance looks pretty blocky. Yeah, but it's a pretty low resolution. It's half 720p. So let's keep it like this, see if it holds up. So this is the very beginning of the game. Let me put bigger. So let's continue like this and see what happens. As you can see, CPU usage is still pretty high. This is the Swarm engine this is from the people that made World War Z, that had lots of zombies on screen. Well, that's the same engine over here, but visually superior. And when it comes to the amount of enemies, apparently there will be more enemies on screen, so lots more action. As you can see, when there's a lot of them, it can drop. Again, we're at the lowest settings basically, just with textures and medium. I mean, we're close to 30, but we're on a Steam Deck OLED. If you have the LCD Steam Deck, you probably need to lower it a little bit further. Maybe 1172 by 720, 1152 by 720 instead of 800p. Still black bars, but there we go. So yeah, I had to go aggressive with FSR because this one really uses a lot of resources. Especially when it comes to CPU, uses more CPU than I anticipated. And at the moment I'm not fighting anyone, so let's see how that goes. Okay, so first of all, when it comes to upscaling, FSR2 looks a bit blocky, a bit too FSR2 on this one. So I still recommend you use it because of performance reasons. Looks better than FSR1, but there's a little bit of blockiness because again it's a pretty low pixel count and we're still dropping into the 20s. So yeah, I mean, this game is super demanding, lots of enemies on screen. It was kinda to be expected. So before I continue very quickly, if you have an LCD Steam Deck, do the same but at 1152 by 720. It's a little bit lower resolution, but should compensate for the difference. Let's try FSR1. So TAA with upscaling, as you can see here, says TAA algorithm with FSR1 for upscaling. So let's try that. Okay, definitely with FSR1 upscaling looks significantly worse, looks super over sharpened. I mean, it looks like FSR1. I would say it's similar to what normal upscaling looks like. Performance seems a little bit better though. But we are maxing out the CPU in a few cores. But the game looks pretty good. But remember that we are here, we're at the tutorial. The game will have lots more enemies on screen all at once. It's going to be way more demanding than this. I mean, if you see that blood on the screen, imagine that multiplied by 5. Alright, so now we're in handheld to see how it looks on the smaller screen, because if I'm putting this on a monitor, of course it's going to look bad because it's a 7-inch screen versus a monitor. So same settings as before, medium textures, the rest on the absolute lowest. And we're doing FSR2 performance. And well, what to say? It's basically the same performance. On the smaller screen, it's less obvious that we're getting a much lower resolution. It still looks pixelated. Obviously, we're at 50% resolution. And again, if you have an LCD Steam Deck, put it at 1152 by 720, and you expect similar numbers to this. But I'm pretty surprised when it comes to CPU performance. I was expecting worse on the CPU actually, considering that the game will throw lots of enemies on screen at the same time. But as you can see, as soon as there's something coming your way, it's going to drop into the upper 20s, especially at the beginning. I mean, it's way better on the smaller screen again, since it's harder to notice the smaller resolution. But you can definitely notice that it's way below 720. Still, considering what this game is trying to do, I'm pretty impressed that it actually works. I was expecting really below 20 at all times. So now we're outside the prologue, the first mission, as the main character. Well, so far the CPU is crying, the GPU is crying. But considering the explosions and all that, yeah, it'll drop into the 20s. There seems to be a mix of CPU and GPU limitation. But the game still looks pretty good, at least in my opinion. Considering this is low settings, this shadow quality for low settings is pretty impressive. Although we don't have any ambient occlusion, the screen space reflections are completely missing. Again, we're playing a new game on the Steam Deck, but we are CPU and GPU limited. I mean, the GPU clock drops to 1000. It can go up to 1600, but since we only have a 15-watt TDP, the CPU is telling the GPU, hey, we need to share, I need to do work. And well, when there's a lot of enemies on screen, that's what happens. So all things considered, I mean, the fact that they're saying, oh yeah, we're working on official Steam Deck support, but it's not ready, it's kinda surprising in a way that I don't know how they would make this work properly on Steam Deck. I mean, we're very far from 30 FPS. Especially when it comes to enemies on screen, as you can probably notice. Oh, there's a dodge button, okay. As I was saying, I don't think the Steam Deck, when it comes to hardware, can handle it. Let's put it on ultra performance to... Yeah, ultra performance still doesn't make it run consistently, even close to 30. I tried dynamic resolution, but we don't seem to have good enough hardware to do so. Again, I thought it was going to be way worse than this, honestly. But once stuff happens on screen with multiple enemies, which is the point of the game, it'll drop hard. Pretty hard. I mean, look at this. So the CPU is basically maxed out because lots of enemies, and the GPU, since the CPU is doing lots of work, the GPU doesn't have a high frequency. It's basically at 800 megahertz. But you might ask, Santiago, you can force the GPU clock to 1600. Yes, I can. That's true. The thing is that, well, the CPU needs to do its job. So if I'd actually manually put the GPU at 1600, it's still going to drop because the CPU doesn't have enough frequency to keep up. So yeah, it basically changes nothing. So again, the developer said that they are working on official Steam Deck support. By looking at this, if they actually pull it off, I'll be very impressed. If they actually manage to get 30 FPS, again, I'll be blown away. Because this is already the OLED Steam Deck. On the LCD, it's going to be the same as this, but at 1152 by 720. Yeah, first impressions are pretty rough. But if they mentioned official Steam Deck support is being developed, I'm pretty interested to see how this evolves. So yeah guys, super excited to have this playable on Steam Deck if they actually pull it off. I don't know how. And yeah, this game releases tomorrow for the Ultimate and Special Edition buyers. And for the Standard Edition people, they're going to be releasing it 4 days after. So stay tuned. So far I really like the game, but not at this performance obviously. But we're playing on a Steam Deck, so I mean look at the amount of enemies on screen. It's probably going to get even worse than this later on. So my first impressions are not ready for Steam Deck, but if they manage to make it run there properly, it will blow my mind. Just because of how it's running right now. Maybe less enemies on screen? I don't know. So thank you for watching, and I'll see ya next time. Bye guys.